Welcome back to the Just Win podcast. This is episode 3. That's Tashan Reed. I'm Ted Nguyen. That's Vic Tafur. And we are going to be talking about Raiders training camp and getting you ready for their first preseason game against the Minnesota Vikings. We are talking with former Raider corner and hopefully potential Hall of Famer Eric Allen about his takeaways from Raider camp, the challenges of playing corner. And he calls me and Tashan young. He has cleats older than us in the interview. So we'll get to that, and then we'll talk about training camp a little further. All right, guys, welcome in Eric Allen, our second guest ever on the Just Win podcast. Eric is a 6-time Pro Bowl corner with the Eagles, Saints, and Raiders, and he is currently an analyst for the Silver and Black. You've made the trip here to camp. You've checked out the team. What are your biggest takeaways so far from watching the team?
Well, first of all, I mean, when you come on the football field, if you just stand on the field for a couple minutes, you can't help but notice where Max is. That's the first person that jumps off to everyone, I think, who comes out and watch practice, and it's just a joy to watch him compete, try and get better every day. You love his story, but if you're a Raider fan, or even if you're not a Raider fan, you just have to really enjoy and kind of respect, what Max has been able to do with his career so far. So that's the first thing. Defensively, I think this football team is going to have a opportunity to be, in the top 10. They finished last year as one of the number 1 or 2 in scoring defenses. So that's the first thing you notice when you go to camp is how competitive, how noisy, how productive defensively we're playing right now.
And when it comes to Max, I think something that we've seen is him talking a lot too. And the defense in general. They're getting chirpy back and forth with the offense. Does that sort of attitude make a difference with a defense when you're not just making plays, but you're letting them hear about it?
It does, and I think when you have a leader like Max, and then you have some of the other guys who are trying to emerge as big time players, particularly on the front line. Malcolm Coots is one of the guys, a little bit more quiet, but when Max gets started, you can't help but kind of follow that lead. So you see that confidence, and it just brings a air of competitiveness to practice. And offensively, I thought the first couple of days, defense had their number, but as the camp went on, I just thought the banter back and forth really helped the offense, particularly offensive line, have some pretty good days so far.
Who are some of the other players that kind of caught your eye, you think, at training camp?
Yeah, obviously Jack Jones, is a baller and another one of those very competitive and confident young man. Love his game. And the one thing I always talk to people about is you understand and see a cornerback out there playing, but you have to really give respect to him. He's a student of the game. And that part of it, I was able to talk to him a couple times, and he really understands the route discipline and the route combinations. And he wants to be the kind of guy who can sit down, watch film, take that to the game, and really capitalize by that. I think he has really lifted that defensive back room up. You have a guy like Nate Hobbs, who's really been a good football player. Now he can focus inside and really be a dominant type of nickel player. Does an outstanding job being a nickel back of securing the edge, which is so important in defensive football, is making sure that nickel guy is a cover guy, but you can't give a lot up on the run. You have to be able to secure the edge. He does a great job body control-wise, facing those big pulling linemen, those tight ends. Morig is another player who's kind of jumped off the screen so far in this practice. And Max also said he's going to be the guy to look at right now, our free safety, making big-time plays. And this will be his 3rd or 4th year, and we're expecting really big things from Trayvon.
When it comes to Jack in particular, he's flashed both of his first 2 years in the league, between being with the Patriots and the Raiders. What do you feel like is the next step for him to take that big leap and kind of cement himself as one of the top corners in the league?
Well, he has to continue to make plays on the ball, and that's what separates, the top players from just good players. And, being in the Pro Bowl is great, but you have to make an impact like he has been, particularly last year, making plays on the ball, getting the ball. Have to have a cornerback who can take the ball away. That's the most important thing. There's going to be opportunities to shut down guys and and have the respect around the league. But the most important thing as a cornerback is to be able to give the ball back to your offense, or like we seen him do last year, score your own self.
Yeah, I love what you said about Jack Jones being a student of the game. I think some people think playing corner is so reactionary, but you also have to, you have to be able to kind of anticipate those things happening. That only
Yeah.
happens with film study.
Yeah.
And speaking about a player that should be taking another leap is Jakorian Bennett. I think a lot of people were excited about Jakorian coming into last year. What did you see from Bennett, and what kind of improvements do you see him making in camp?
Yeah, you see the big smile on my face. Yeah, I think everybody was really hoping for him to take that next step the first couple weeks in camp. And to everyone's excitement, he did. He made those steps. And a lot of it was seeing things another way, right? This coaching staff has done a really good job of developing players. And usually it takes an off season in some aspects to develop. We saw this coaching staff come in and have those players kind of turn around within a couple of weeks because they wanted them to focus on things that they were good at and understood, like watch film, find out what you're good at, and we're going to stay in that kind of area right now these next first couple of weeks. And again, I go back to Malcolm Kuntz, how he was able to kind of be a maybe a third down guy at times. Towards the end of the season, he was an every snap guy. Did an outstanding job on his bend. I think having Bennett this offseason, the coaching staff has really done a great job at making sure you put him in situations where he felt comfortable, where he felt confident, and you continue to see that confidence build. And by the end of camp, he was making plays on the ball. Has tremendous speed. I think the most important thing at corner, particularly if you're a young guy, is the balance. And when I mean by balance is when the ball's in the air and the DB and receiver are fighting with their bodies, with their shoulders, their elbows, you have to be able to have balance, not to, have missteps and awkward jumps. You have to be able to have balance to be able to kind of keep that receiver in striking distance, have the ball placement, anticipate where the ball is going to land, and at the last second, either block the ball away, pick it off, or work through the hands. All those things require that everyday routine of practice. And if you stayed after practice, every day after practice, Bennett was getting that work in. Him and Coach Ricky Manning Jr. were doing a great job of just working through all those, at the top of the route where your receiver is going to break down. You have to be able to break down, have enough balance to be able to kind of mirror what he's trying to do. So Bennett has done a really good job at kind of pushing that pace a little bit faster. So we're expecting him to take that huge step this year during the season.
Something else with Bennett, we saw him have a strong training camp last year.
Yeah.
He was a week one starter and got a lot of responsibility early in his career. And, because of a mix of injuries and performance, he kind of lost that role as the season went on. When a young player is going through something like that, what's the key to them being able to sort of bounce back and move on and not let that linger with them moving forward with their career?
Hopefully to have a veteran that is there to kind of walk them through those things. And I think that is so important for a young corner to understand that you may have had tremendous success at college. You may have had tremendous success in preseason because preseason is so vanilla. But once you get into the season, we're going to start breaking you down as an opponent. So those offensive coordinators, those receivers are basically looking at him saying, all right, he opens up too early here. So we'll be able to get him on an 18-yard comeback. We're going to double move him. So if you haven't seen those things as a young player, you're really going to struggle. You have to have an older vet to kind of sit you down. And it happened with me. I had a guy named Roynell Young who had been in the league for, 7-8 years in Philly. Those first 5 or 6 weeks, it was critical to sit down with him in meeting rooms and really just kind of pick his brain and kind of find out what I should be looking for. Same thing I was able to do with Charles Woodson when I was with the Raiders in 1998. So that's what you need. You need that veteran presence. And I think Jack really fits that mold. He gives that room confidence. He gives them opportunities to kind of sit down. Why did you jump that route, Jack? Well, on Monday, when I was breaking down film, in this situation here, I saw, 1st and 10, I saw the formation, and we've seen this over and over. So you got to be ready to anticipate. Anytime you're reacting as a corner for 80, 90% of the time, you're always going to be a playoff. You have to anticipate. You have to have that great preparation to give you the confidence to anticipate and jump routes. So I think that defensive backfield, safeties included, are going to make a lot more plays on the ball because of the practice schedule and how they practice before and after, the coaching staff doing a great job, and more importantly, the veteran players on that football team kind of giving everyone the courage to be able to jump those routes.
Hearing you talk about the skills, the responsibilities required to play cornerback sounds very tough. That's a tough position. Is that the toughest position on the football field?
Well, I keep trying to tell everybody that's the toughest position, but I'm not sure who's listening. There were great conversations and debates we had when I was with the Raiders with, Timmy Brown and Jerry Rice. We would spend, partly the rest of practice just talking about how difficult it is to play a position. And at some point, if you're an athlete and you try and line up at cornerback and cover a receiver, I think everyone will come to the conclusion that it is the most difficult position to play in all the sports.
Yeah, I mean, receiver's easy. You know what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
Just go out there and run a route.
Anybody can do that, right?
Speaking of young cornerbacks, another one that sort of stood out in training camp, Decamerion Richardson, rookie, come in, and we've seen him gradually earn more and more playing time. I mean, he has all the physical tools you would look for in a modern day corner: 6'2", 195, 4.3 speed. But he's also sort of working through some of those rookie growing pains. I know you mentioned it a little bit, but from your experience, what was the toughest thing to kind of adjust to as a rookie cornerback, and what do you think are some things that could help Richardson going into year one?
Well, first of all, when you're a young guy, your speed is great, and that kind of gets you in play. If you can, you're a 4.4, 4.3 guy, that gets you in play. But what happens is every play you're facing a different receiver. You're facing a TO. You're facing a Tyreek Hill. It's just, and so you have to have a solution, a tool for all of those different players. And that's the big difference when you make that jump to the league. You may face one or two guys in college who are going to play at this level, but each week you're facing a different guy. You're facing a guy who's an outstanding route runner. He may not be fast, so your 4.3, 40 doesn't matter if you're facing a guy who's all about, lateral movement, breaking down, one-punch steps, things like that. So you just have to have a tool for every player on every play. And that's the difficult part about it if you're a young guy, because you haven't had that off season to prepare for the fast guy, for the strong guy, for the route runner, for the guy who's off the line of scrimmage and is getting a pick, for offensive philosophy changes. That's why it's so difficult for young cornerbacks to be successful, because they're just used to seeing like one guy, and preparing for, hey, the best receiver, in the nation is a fast guy. I'm fast, so I'll be able to take the 9 right away. In our game, it's all about the offensive philosophy and what they're trying to accomplish from first and second and third down. You're seeing a different offensive set philosophy on every down. So not only physically do you have to be at the top of your game, but what we've been talking about is mental. The mental game is the most important thing to accomplish if you're a young cornerback. You have to be able to come up to the line of scrimmage and within a couple seconds understand the situation. First down, second down, third down. Is this a running football team? Is it a play action team? Are they shotgun? Are they moving their receiver around? So all those things you have to really get down and nail before the ball's even snapped, right? So not only is it a physically daunting game, but for a cornerback, if you want to be one of those guys that's a shutdown corner and has respect around the league and is getting your hands on the ball, you have to understand, your opponent on every single down.
You and I were talking the other day about how nice the setup was in Costa Mesa the Raiders had there. As a player, what were the benefits to you having the camp away from home?
Yeah, we had that great conversation, and I really enjoyed the time of just kind of locking out all the noise, even though the noise is so much louder now because of the devices and, all that stuff. When we were in camp, we would go away. And I thought that was beneficial for me so I could kind of see if things that I worked on before preseason, before training camp, if it's working. So if I'm, playing off and I want to slow pedal too fast and I need to see if that's going to work. So I'll try that on a Monday. It didn't really work on Monday. so I can go in, watch film, and then I'm sitting in my hotel room or my dorm room. I may have something that pops up in my head. I'll run back down the film, be able to bring it up. It's like, oh yeah, I didn't do it this way. I should have angled this way. You really can't do that if you're at home. It's just when you're in that environment and it's every day. I think you really get a great understanding of not only just who you are and how you can accelerate that training camp and how you're going to play, but you're able to kind of lean on some friends and find out how other guys prepare, how they study. The training method of, I came in with Mike Quick, and Mike was a tremendous receiver. I mean, it was him and Jerry Rice in the mid 80s. So I would be able to talk with him after practice while we're eating, and we would spend hours, and I would just talk to him about how he beat guys and how he developed. So you're not able to get that if you're going home. So I just really think that's a huge benefit for the teams to be kind of locked away and it's all football 24 hours a day for a couple weeks. I think that really benefits the younger guys and older guys who are trying to work on things. You're able to just kind of focus on it and dig in on it.
Was that James Quick, you said?
Mike Quick.
Mike Quick. See,
Yeah.
I don't even know about him. I got to look him up now.
Yeah, look him up. Mike was a Philadelphia Eagle, and he was maybe the number one receiver in the league for about 3 or 4 years. He broke his leg, and it didn't really it really hurt him at the end of his career. But he was just a tremendous, tremendous player, and gave so many other guys like Chris Carter and Jerry Rice. He gave them a lot of really good tools that they could use to be successful in the league.
Got it. And what was your favorite memory as a Raider?
Favorite memory? Yeah. Probably the Dallas Cowboys game. It was early, we were having, a little bit of success. So it was kind of for me playing the Cowboys, and, Michael Irvin was still there. Dion was still there. And that was the first time I introduced Charles and Dion at the beginning of the game. I was like, hey, this is a young dude you gotta, watch out for. This dude's gonna be awesome. So just an opportunity to see, Prime, who's the top guy, and then kind of introduce him to Charles. So that whole Dallas thing, and we end up winning the game. We have some great plays on the ball. We shut down Michael and the rest of those receivers. But it was just a great game because there's so many great stars. They still had some of those players who were from those great teams. And then we were just in the beginning of becoming a really good football team in Oakland. So that, and then obviously, the AFC Championship game against Baltimore, we lost, but it was just a great team. And we had kind of built that team from this scrappy 1998 squad who, finished, I think, 500. And we kind of built that team. Rich Gannon. We had a really cool group of players who really wanted to fight and win for ourselves.
And you played in 3 different decades: 80s, 90s, 2000s.
Yeah.
So you saw the game change, I'm sure, while you were in the league. But what do you think the biggest change in the game has been since you retired?
Ooh, man. I think the quarterback play is really elevated. It really has. I mean, every team has a guy who can make things happen for the most part. The good teams, the teams we're seeing in the championship games. I just marvel at Patrick Mahomes. He's a great combination of, Joe Montana, Dan Marino. These guys have been able to watch some of these great quarterbacks and kind of combine their skill sets, and they are just really amazing. The ability to be able to be outside the pocket. I played, of course, with Randall Cunningham, and he was the first ultimate weapon guy, right? You couldn't really prepare for him if you're trying to play. If you played man, he would just kill you with his legs, and he was just such a dynamic runner before he got hurt. And now these guys are a lot like all those other guys. They're a combination. On first and second down, they could throw the ball like, Dan Marino, with that quick release. And then on third down, they're outside the pocket, running like a running back. So I think the quarterback position has really elevated our league. And the rule changes, of course, have made it very difficult for defensive players to be dominant and have those, giant type of Lawrence Taylor days, or even some of our defenses, back with the Eagles, we ranked number one in every category one year, but we were able to be physical. I was able to get a guy at the line of scrimmage and basically throw him out of bounds. So
Yeah.
those are things that I think have changed, and we'll never go back to those days. So I think the game's in a really good place right now. But hopefully we can just continue to grow and just hold the flags a little bit sometimes for us defensive players.
I was going to say, I mean, if you're saying that the quarterback play is elevated, obviously, these offensive coordinators are trying all kinds of new stuff every year. You basically can't hit the quarterback, can't really touch the receivers and tight ends anymore. Like, how do you play defense today? Like, how did they pull it off?
Yeah, and that's why it's so big about anticipating things and having an understanding of not only, like, when I'm watching film now, I'm just not watching one individual. I'm just not watching the receiver and what routes he ran. I'm doing research in the off season on the offensive coordinator. Like, where is he from? Where did he get his start from? What tree is he from? Is he a West Coast guy? Is he a play action guy? Is he a run and shoot guy? So I'm trying to get an idea on where he is trying to go. Right? So now when I'm on the football field, I understand that you have a great receiver, but I'm on the field and I have an understanding of the route combinations. So what situation are you in? So you're in 1st and 10. You just had a turnover. Everything tells me it's take a shot time, right? So I mean, it's like you have to do that. It's take a shot. You're past the 50. So it's just me having an idea of, okay, this is the formation you take a shot in. This is the receiver you take a shot in. So instead of worrying about what the receiver is about, it's about understanding the offensive philosophy and what the coordinator is trying to accomplish. And I think if you go in with that mindset as a defensive back or as a defensive player in general, it gives you opportunities to make plays, to be where the ball is going to be at the end of the play. And that was my only thinking. I don't care what route you run. I just want to be where the ball is going to be at the end of the play. And if it's there, I have confidence that I'm going to be able to make the play.
I'll save you some time. Every coach, every offensive coordinator is from the McVay or Shanahan tree now. You don't even have to research it anymore.
Pretty much, but they have offshoots. So McVay is, Andy Reid, West Coast stuff. But the thing about the West Coast offense, which makes it so great, is so they come in with the West Coast offense, but they look at the personnel, right? And so they say, okay, do we have, a Randy Moss, or do we have a bunch of small receivers? So if we have a bunch of smaller receivers, we're going to run a lot of short to intermediate routes, and it's all based on timing. Be like the 49ers when they had Steve Young. Everything slants, outs, everything is timing. So it's not about really, again, it's not about understanding what the receiver's doing. It's about understanding where the ball's going to be at the end of the play. You have to understand the situation. I'll give you one example. You guys probably weren't even born. It's 1994. We're playing the 49ers. We're going out to San Francisco to play. The first 15 plays for the West Coast offense are pretty much scripted. And out of those first 15, Jerry Rice is going to get probably 5 of those. And for Jerry to get going, he likes the out route, likes the slant route, those kind of things, depending on the situation and where he's lined up. So my brain, I'm just thinking, I just need to understand the situation, where Jerry's lined up, and I don't care about all the other stuff. So I lined up. He lines up in his position where he's going to run a slant. I'm thinking slant already. Before Steve Young has the ball out of his hands, I'm jumping the slant. I pick it off and take it about 25 yards, right? So again, it's not really about what the receiver's doing. It goes back to the philosophy. So all these West Coast guys are about what their roster is like. So if a West Coast guy has Devontae Adams, they're going to be working the mid-range stuff with all this great in cuts, 18-yard dig routes. We're going to get all that stuff. If you have Tariq Hill in the West Coast offense, you're going to get a lot of post patterns and a lot of stuff like that. So, yes, they all come from the West Coast, but once they get in and kind of understand their roster, they try and change it, tinker with it a little bit. So it's in a great spot, and all these guys can be creative, and all these guys can be from the same tree, but run different aspects depending on what kind of personnel they have.
Were you two guys born in '94? You weren't, huh? Both you
I
guys.
was
89. I was born
Okay.
96. So
Oh,
I
96.
was
Oh, yeah. You missed. Yeah. You
I
just.
wasn't there yet.
I,
I,
I, I was only 23, so I was also very young back
yeah.
then.
I got
But
football cleats older than you guys, man.
I want to ask you, speaking of coordinators, what have you heard and seen so far from Luke Getzey? What are your impressions of what this offense could be?
Yeah, well, we're going to have to run the football, obviously. I think that's going to be the biggest thing is for this group to be able to be effective at running the football and put us in situations where we're dictating so we can work the play action. We don't want too many, third and longs. We want manageable situations. So he is going to have to be really creative. And that's why with the offensive lines and, Colton and Powers not really practicing kind of put us behind the eight ball a little bit, right? So I think that's the most important thing offensively. I think everyone in the league knows that we're going to have to work off the play action, protect our quarterbacks, make sure that they're in a situation where we're throwing because we want to, not because we have to. That's going to rely a lot on defense, being able to get 3 and outs, give us short fields. This is going to have to be a football team, I think, early on, the first 4 or 5 weeks of the season, is going to have to be, hey, defense is playing great, getting turnovers, and our running game is popping, right? And guys are coming in. On third down, our back may be different, but we have the opportunity to get it because it's going to be third and short. That's going to be most important. And then off the play action, you got to be creative. I think Bowers, I think he could be a huge, huge asset for this football team because he's the kind of guy who can line up in the backfield as a fullback, motion out. Obviously, everyone understands that we can go with 2 tight ends. We have one guy's hand who's in the dirt. We have one guy who can bounce out a little bit. And now, hopefully, you've run the ball effectively. And now they have 3 linebackers in and not nickel or dime. So now you can extend your tight end, and now a linebacker is on him. So now you can take advantage of that situation. It's all about matchups. Who can create the advantages in those situations? And if we're in 12 personnel and we're running the ball effectively, all of that, that's basically for us 11 personnel. So now we have the defense thinking, man, if we bring a nickel in, they're going to run the ball down our throat. So we have to continue to kind of load the box up with those tight ends. And now we flex out. We can use Devontae, Myers, who's an excellent number 2 receiver. We have Speed and Turner and Tucker. So we have possibilities of making some big plays, but it all starts and begins with our ability to be able to dictate in the running game.
Sounds pretty good. Let's
Yep.
go. I'm ready. I'm ready for the season. Let's go.
Yep.
Yeah,
Let's
it's
do it.
I guess on that note, I mean, something that, and Luke Getzey, when he's spoken to us, he said it a couple of times, like AP has really driven home wanting that offense to be physical. And, same thing goes for the defense. And that's kind of part of the larger culture that he's trying to set for the team, physicality, toughness, being aggressive. And we saw the team, sort of adopt that, with Pierce taking over as interim head coach last season, in addition to being more of a, player first kind of head coach. And that kind of galvanized the guys around him, and coming into this first year with the team has already been to talk about, him instilling this culture change. From your experience, as a player, how real is the effect of that? Is it something that's more of a media talking point, or do you actually, feel it as a player and as a team?
It can work both ways, but this here is tangible. I worked with AP at ESPN years and years ago. We were working on the same shows together, breaking down film together, and he's always been a football first guy. And I mean, I'll get phone calls sometimes when he was at Long Beach Poly High School, and he like, EA, man, we got 5 different uniform combinations, and we're in high school, so me and AP go back a little bit, and I kind of understand, what era he's from. And I think the players have really taken to what he is authentically about. And he's about having a tough mentality, earning your way, being physical, being unapologetic about that. Understanding you have to have confidence in this game. Understanding that if you come to the ballpark and you're this way every single day in practice, you're going to show up that way in the game. Guys have bought in. No matter if it's a play or not. if the guys buy in, that's all that matters. And they have definitely bought in. I think the most important thing here, two teams are trying to have this identity. Us and the Chargers. I think Jim Harbaugh is trying to promote the same identity in his football team. Physicality, running the football, defense, all those things. It's going to be interesting to see. We've had a year and a half head start on it. And I think going into this preseason, we have to continue that trend. It's going to be interesting to see, which team is able to consistently show that and not kind of stray from that when things, go wrong in a game or in a half. I have confidence in what I've seen. Let the dogs out. What I've seen,
uh,
what I've seen the end of last year and this training camp, that is still the same. This football team understands to be successful, you have to be physical. You have to have this ability to be able to overcome adversity through your physicality and be a smart ball player.
what would it mean to you to be in the Hall of Fame, and you think you've earned it?
Yeah, you know what? I've never been a rear view mirror guy. I'm always, what's the next thing? And right after I was playing, went to ESPN, but the last probably 3 or 4 years, it's been like, hold up, hold up. I got the numbers, I have, all the, backing and play for two of the, greatest, franchises as far as fan base is concerned. So it would be great, just not for me, but for all the folks who helped me get to this point. And, the family is all supportive, got so many great people, but it would be great for a guy from San Diego to be able to wear that gold jacket. We got Marcus, we got Junior Seau, who are hometown guys, but I would love to be able to be in that mix.
That'd be awesome, man.
Yeah.
Pulling for you.
Appreciate it.
All right, man. Thanks a lot, man. I really appreciate this.
Yep. Take care, guys.
Hey, Eric.
Yep. All right.
Thank you.
Yep.
That was a great interview with Eric. And what did you guys see out of training camp? What are some developments that we didn't touch on with Eric?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it with Eric, but Jakorian Bennett stepping up, I think, has been pretty huge. I think if you look at that defense on paper coming out of the offseason, cornerback was the big question mark. Do they have another answer? We've talked a lot about the options in free agency. Are they going to need to sign one at one point? I think we were a little bit skeptical about if they had an answer already on the roster. And Bennett has really stepped up and had a really strong training camp and really sort of defined himself as a starter alongside Jack Jones and Nate Hobbs at cornerback. And so it's a lot of time until the start of the season. We'll see how he performs in the preseason and how the next 4 weeks of practice play out. But right now, he looks like he's a shoo-in for that starting cornerback spot.
Yeah, I think the one we always talk about every day on social media and in our stories is the quarterback battle. It's not been pretty. Been a lot of interceptions the past week, especially. There were had that big scrimmage on Saturday night, and Aiden O'Connell threw 2. And Gardner had the best night. He had 2 touchdowns, but 1 pick. And after that, it kind of got, I won't say worse, but there were a lot of picks the last week in practice. I think
I would say worse.
Yeah, worse. Yeah, whatever. But it's a concern. I mean, Antonio Pierce is trying to say, just there's a month left. I think both guys are learning the offense, and Eric mentioned the O-line injuries, but yeah, I mean, I guess the way to look at it is that the bar is not very high. Like these guys aren't going to be asked to do a whole lot, just kind of complete the ball on short passes and play action. So maybe it's not the end of the world. And again, this team's built around this defense and their running game, and I think the quarterbacks hopefully they're hoping that they can get by with the guys they have, and maybe whoever wins doesn't really matter. It's that close, but right now it's still a dead heat.
Yeah, I mean, I think the game plan works if they aren't giving the ball away, and that's been an issue in training camp. Like, there are different types of guys. Like Gardner Minshew is more of a gamer and take more risks, and Aiden's more of the statue drop back passer. But they've both been turning it over about the same rate, and just throwing the ball in the harm's way, making bad decisions, but also just inaccurate. I mean, I feel like the guys talk a lot about them being accurate, but I haven't really seen it. You see a lot of balls going behind guys, way above guys, too high on wide open passes. We saw one that led to a pick from Gardner Minshew earlier in practice this week, and so they look like they're mistake prone, and liable to turn the ball over. And so the whole ball control, running the ball, play defense thing doesn't work as well when that's what's happening. And I mean, we saw that last season when, Jimmy Garoppolo was having his struggles, and even Aiden O'Connell, had his struggles taking care of the ball at times. And so that's going to be an element of, if even if they don't have a super high ceiling, and obviously neither one of them are going to become Patrick Mahomes, but they can't give the ball away at the rate that they've been doing in training camp.
Is it a matter of the pressure really affecting them? I mean, Colton Miller and JPJ hasn't practiced at all, right? So that's potential two starters missing from your offensive line. Is it the pressure just getting to them and forcing these mistakes, or is it a lot of unforced errors?
I'd say at times there's a pressure, but I wouldn't say it's really the main reason. I just think, like Deshaun mentioned, even the passes they complete are usually behind guys. Nothing like this offense needs passes to be hit in stride, coming across the middle. It has to be a timing thing. And right now, the timing is not there. Most of the throws are behind guys. Or you saw that pick that Jack Jones had; it was a mile high. So I just think, yeah, I guess if you're being optimistic, you say it's a work in progress. There's a month left, and these guys will keep learning the offense. I think we've seen the offense. There were some signs that Luke Getsy has a good idea what he wants to do. I think we mentioned the play action and misdirection and kind of keeping teams off balance. So I think, again, they're not asking these guys to throw the ball 40 yards downfield to receivers. It's going to be more of a, just kind of take what you can get and create mismatches. And again, ideally, you have guys wide open. You got Devontae Adams, Jakorian Myers. The two tight ends are really good. So ideally, these guys win their matchups, making it easier for these guys to complete these passes.
Yeah, I don't think
And
this has
I
been
heard
a aspect of the offense as a whole struggling. I mean, I think the receivers and tight ends have done a pretty good job of separating. The backs look good. Even the offensive line has been solid, in my opinion. I mean, they have a couple backups in there, and Andrews Peter at left tackle and Cody Whitehair at left guard. But it's not like the defense is in the backfield every single play. Even when it's a clean pocket, sometimes these quarterbacks are just not making the right throw or making inaccurate throws. And so I don't think it's an element of the entire offense struggle. I think it's pretty specific to the quarterbacks.
mm. And speaking of the offensive line, one of the rookies I think Antonio Pierce pointed out that was doing pretty well is DJ Glaze, and that's another development. Uh, do you think he's done enough to kind of put himself in that conversation of maybe challenging Thayer Munford?
I mean, he's definitely got his foot in the door. I think they want there to start, and have given DJ some more reps as he's earned them. He did pretty well against Max one day, and as well as you can against Max. So he wasn't embarrassed, but for the most part. But so I think he's been a nice surprise. A guy who you weren't thinking a third round pick will come in as a rookie and kind of trying to demand some more reps, but he has. I think last year with Thayer Munford, they kind of wanted him. The plan was he'd beat out Jimmy Eleanor last year, but he couldn't quite do it. So I think the plan again for him to kind of assert himself, and he's got a month left. But I think DJ Glaze is now in the conversation where he wasn't, say, before camp.
Yeah, I mean, it was the first day in pads. Thayer Munford hurt his hand, and DJ Glaze kind of just got thrown in there and held up, did a solid job. And ever since then, we've seen him working more with the first team offense at right tackle. And so I would say Thayer Munford is still getting the majority of the reps with the first team at right tackle. But, you can't just wipe it away at this point, especially, going into the preseason. The Raiders are expected to play, anybody who's healthy. And so if Glaze goes out there and has a way better preseason than Thayer Munford, then he could end up still in that job. But as of right now, I would say Munford's still pretty comfortably in the league, but he has something to worry about a little bit.
Yeah, and the offense has been missing its best player in Devontae Adams, who's been out because of his baby being due pretty soon. How have the young receivers looked? I know you were down on Trey Tucker. He's dropped a bunch of balls. Has he improved? And has any of the other young receivers played well?
Trey had a real nice scrimmage. He actually had a couple days where I thought he made some strides, but again, there's some more drops the last few days. So definitely still an issue. I think something to watch, but he clearly is your third guy right now. I think he's well set up there. And as far as Devontae being gone, Jacoby Myers is really shown why he's one of their top guys. I think the young guys have kind of made strides. Antonio Pierce has really given DJ Turner a lot of compliments this week. He's really have been involved all over the field, kind of, in the backfield, coming around in the end, and short passes, even a deep pass. So I think DJ Turner this year wants to earn not only a special team spot, but also a spot in the offense. He's made some nice catches this camp. Another guy is Christian Wilkerson, kind of physical guy who's also been in the bubble, also had a nice camp.
Yeah, and I mean, Jalen Guyton, like you said, he's coming back from injury,
Yeah.
and He started to come along a little bit in practice this week, mostly running with the backups, but he looked pretty good physically out there anyway, and he's a pretty good speed guy. Has a little bit more size on him than a guy like DJ Turner has, and so between that and obviously them having tight ends and Brock Bowers and Michael Mayer who can kind of fill in receiver duties a little bit, I think they're pretty set in that front. Obviously, they need Devontae Adams back, but he'll be back whenever he has it or his wife has a son.
Yeah, what about the running backs? I know, Labe has stood out. Do you think that rotation is set?
I think so. I think I had some question marks going into the offseason about if they need to add a running back, but I thought Zamir White looks really good. I thought Madison had a great camp. He definitely showed really good hands. It hasn't always been look at his history, not known for his hands, but it's some really nice catches. He's in great shape. I think he'll be a really good number 2 running back. And then I know Labe was the hot name early in camp. I'm still not sure he overtakes Amir Abdullah, but again, for a third and fourth running back, that's pretty good. Guys who have experience and potential, guys who can catch the ball out of the backfield and play on third down. So I like that 4. I think it's a pretty strong 4, and I've changed my mind. There's no need to add a running back at this point.
All right, what things are you guys watching out for in this first preseason game? Are the starters playing? What position battles there are? Even if it's for the second or third spot, what are you guys looking for against the Vikings?
Well, I mean, whenever you have a quarterback competition, the first thing is a quarterback competition, and so Antonio Pierce said both Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell are going to play 1 quarter each. He didn't say who's going to start first. But I don't know if that matters as much as how they perform once they get out there. I'm not 100% sure what the Vikings' plans are, if they're going to play all their starters or not. But regardless, these guys, it's time for one of them to separate themselves. And I think these 3 preseason games are going to have to be where it happens because it ain't happening in practice so far. So, maybe we start to see on Saturday if one of them has a better day and starts to inch ahead a little bit.
I think Tashan and I are joking that they both struggle in the first half. All of a sudden, Anthony Brown, baby, enters the mix. Second half, big numbers. It's a 3-man battle. No, but I'm looking forward to seeing again the offense. Maybe some more layers to it. I think we mentioned young receivers, and the tight ends have been great at camp, so I think they'll be great in this game. But and then defensively, I think you mentioned the young secondary. A lot of guys who are kind of playing for jobs in that secondary. But yeah, it's just kind of a chance. You see things in camp, you don't really know if it's real. Like now in games, you kind of really evaluate guys and see what they're doing, and if they have a chance to make the roster.
Are we going to see Bowers in this game?
Yeah, I think everyone's playing. I think that's
everybody's healthy is playing. So.
Yeah.
Unless
He won't play. I don't think he'll play a lot, but I think you'll definitely get a glimpse of why they're so high on him. I mean, he and Mayer have been really good at camp. Like just always open, making blocks, getting loose after the catch. They've both been really impressive this training camp.
Yeah, so just praising everybody in this offense except for the quarterbacks. They're that bad, huh?
As of now, again, but again, we have a month left, so let's give them some time to get comfortable and I guess get their feet wet. But and the thing is, they're different style quarterbacks. I think it'll come down to what they want when they make a decision. Because obviously Gardner can make plays with his feet; he can scramble a little bit and buy time, which you've seen in practice several times. Where Aiden can't do that. I'd say Aiden's a little more accurate, which definitely would be key in this offense. He hasn't shown it of late. He has not been accurate of the last week or so, but in theory and overall and history, watching the film, he is a more accurate quarterback of the 2.
Yeah, I mean, outside of that, I mean, just looking at the rookies in general, I know you mentioned Bowers, but, DJ Glaze, with him inserting himself at the competition at right tackle. I think Tommy Eichenberg at linebacker, he's a guy that's pushing for playing time. The cornerbacks, Decamerion Richardson, he's really, I would say, been like the number 3 cornerback the last couple of weeks with Brandon Faison having some undisclosed injuries. And then MJ Devonshire, who's another one that we don't talk about as much, but he's been backing up Nate Hobbs as nickelback and, working on some special teams as well. And so, and then Dylan Labe, we'll be able to see, I think we've seen him run routes and catch enough, in practice, but seeing how he handles actually running the ball, is he big enough to hold up against NFL defenders? Is he fast enough to separate? And then, on special teams with this new kickoff rule, how many reps does he get as kick returner, punt returner? How useful is he in that area? So, I think, all the rookies are expected to play, and we should be able to gather some valuable insight on how they look out there.
One more guy to watch, I'll throw in Byron Young. He definitely had a nice camp. He's a guy I thought had no chance to make the roster. Was pretty bad last year. He got buried, and he's lost a lot of weight. He's come in with a new focus, and he himself said that last year he came in, hey man, I was drafted, and it kind of felt like I deserve this. I deserve something. It kind of was more of what I can do, more like what should I get for being drafted? So I think he's got a new mindset, and it'll still be tough. It's a very deep D line, but if he can continue on what he's done in camp and maybe make some plays in the game tomorrow, definitely has some momentum going forward because there's always stuff for those guys. Those are guys who were picked by the last regime. So the new regime comes in, like, that's not my guy. I don't care about Byron Young. So he has to really show himself and earn a spot again, and not just based on potential, but based on what he's doing right now. So I think he's he's making the headway, and I think the headways, making headway. What's the phrase? Making headways,
Headway, I
Making
believe.
making
headway,
progress. He's making progress.
making
Yeah.
progress. Headway,
There you
headway
go.
sounded weird. Headway. Anyway, I just got sidetracked, but yeah, he's making progress. So let's see.
All right. So we are going to take our first question, our mailbag questions, and we're doing it a little differently this time. We are going to take them from YouTube comments and Apple comments. So if you have any questions you want us to address on the podcast, make sure you do that on YouTube or Apple, and we'll find them. First question is from Mark Liu 411. With how poorly the QBs have played, how much of that is the new system?
I mean, I'm not going to discredit the significance of having to learn a new offense. Obviously, that's a tough thing to do. Even for Gardner Minshew, who's played a few different offenses throughout his career. But I mean, everybody else has been learning this since OTAs too, and I don't think we see a lot of receivers running the wrong routes or miscues, that kind of stuff. And so I don't know how much longer we're going to use that one, as an excuse. Maybe you just don't think Luke Getsy is that good of an offensive coordinator. Like that,
Ooh,
that could be like a fair, assessment if you're saying that, I mean, you didn't see enough from him in the Bears, and you're wondering if his offense doesn't maximize their ability to perform. But I don't know. I don't think it's really a scheme thing at this point. I think it's
yeah,
really just a quarterback struggling. I think we've seen some questions on Twitter. Is it the system? Is it just the defense is being really good? Like two things can be true, and I think the quarterbacks just are playing poorly right now. It doesn't mean they're always going to play poorly, but it just is what it is at this point.
it's possible that Aiden could be pressing a little bit, and I also think Gardner may be a guy like his career who's been better in games than in practice. I think that's always been kind of one of the things we'll say about him because he's more of a kind of gunslinger mentality. So yeah, I don't really think it's fair at this point to keep saying it's the offense and learning. It's definitely part of it, but like I said, it's all about hitting me here or hitting me here. It's where the pass is going has been the problem so far in camp.
Yeah, I haven't been there at camp, so I haven't seen how ugly it is yet. I'm gonna give them a pass until maybe after this first game to start
Give
really
you a pass because you weren't there.
criticizing.
That's not how it works. We've been in every practice.
Hey, I'm a host on this pod. I get to take two, all right? And I'm giving them a pass,
All
even
right,
though I'm not there.
okay, you can do it.
Uh, so next question, we're going to combine two questions
Ooh,
from Acer Boosie
Ace your
and
Boosie,
X the Ambulance.
extra
Is it
ambulance.
Tannehill time? Any chance they're going to make a move at quarterback before the season? And if the quarterback play stays status quo, what are some near-term and long-term options and outlooks at the position?
I guess I'll start with Tannehill. He's the best free agent quarterback available. He did not play well last year. He was dealing with some injuries and a bad situation with the Titans. I'd be pretty surprised if they went that route before the season. I think somebody, knock on wood, would have to get injured for that to happen at this point. I just don't think that there would be a reason to view him as that much more of an upgrade. But short term, let's say we get into the season and through
Anthony Brown.
7 weeks, both quarterbacks have played and they both just stink. What could the team potentially do this season? I think maybe you could target, a guy that lost a job on another team. I mean, the Steelers have a quarterback battle themselves between Justin Fields and Russell Wilson. I know Fields has been pushing for a starting job while Wilson has been dealing with an injury as of late. And so let's say Fields wins the Steelers job and Wilson is just sitting on the bench. Maybe you try to go get Russell Wilson. There aren't really that many sexy options at this point for them short term, but if the quarterback play is just like horrid, like god awful by the time the season starts, I don't think they can just sit there and deal with it either. So they may have to look around a little bit and see what they can do to improve the season.
I saw recently Tannehill's in the Bahamas. I think he's spearfishing. He looks like he's having the time of his life. He's got the he's got all the injuries
Oh,
coming
he's been
off.
throwing. He's throwing that spear.
He's got
He's got the arm warmed up.
plenty of money. He's banged up. I don't know why he'd come back. I think I'm not sure he's any better than these two guys at this point. But and like you're saying, short term, I guess prayer maybe the short term answer if they're playing like this. But they'll be better than this. It can't be this bad when the season starts.
You said that last year, brother.
I
You said
did say
that
that
last
last
year.
year. I did say it last year. And I was wrong. But Jimmy G was hurt. I'm giving Jimmy G the hurt excuse last year. But
Well, Jimmy G might get cut. I mean, he's playing pretty bad at
uh,
Rams camp reportedly, so
yeah,
he might be
Would
an
that
option.
would they want him? They got, he can't even make it through fucking training
I'm
camp.
kidding. I'm kidding.
Yeah, anyway, long term options. I mean,
so
kind
many
of kind of depends. Like I think the Raiders, as much as we talk about the quarterbacks, like I think with the defense and the run game, they should be competitive enough to not be like a bottom of the barrel. We're picking one of the top quarterbacks in the draft type of teams. But maybe they are. Maybe that happens, and if that does happen, the draft obviously makes the most sense for their timeline in terms of trying to find a long term option. If they're in a similar boat they were this year, the 13th pick or 15th pick, they could still potentially try to make a major trade up in the draft to go get a guy. But if they feel like they need more of a sure thing, Dak Prescott, man. I mean, he's not signed an extension with the Cowboys at this point. I don't know how likely it is that he will before this season or the end of the season. And I mean, if he goes out there and has a similar year to what he did last year, I mean, he's going to hit the market as one of the, they can't franchise tag him. He has a no trade clause, but they got a lot of money now. They got Las Vegas money coming in. They have a good amount of cap space next year. I would go get him if I could, So that's sort of the long term crown jewel, I suppose, if they aren't bad enough to go draft a quarterback.
sounds good. Dak Prescott, or you could always trade for Derek Carr.
Yeah, or Jarrett Stidham. He might lose his starting job. So get
Yeah.
the whole crew back together.
Marcus Mariota, while we're at it, let's just go get all the reach.
No, I think Marcus is happy where he is.
Gotcha.
No, I mean, like you said, I don't think this team is going to be picking in the top 10, and this is not a great draft for quarterbacks coming up. At least it doesn't look like so far. Maybe a few guys emerge. I mean, it could, but
how do we know that yet? We don't know that. They ain't played a snap yet. Got Carson Beck.
I'm
You
just
got
saying,
Shador Sanders.
based on what we know right now.
We don't know much.
Man, we don't know shit.
I was gonna say that too, but I try to be nicer. We don't know much. But I
we'll
mean,
see.
obviously they're kind of. I mean, I know Raider fans always like, oh, here we go again. We're gonna win 8 games and have no quarterback to get. We're gonna be stuck. But you never know what's gonna happen. You go, it's like you said, trade for a guy, trade for a backup. Maybe Hooker becomes available, and maybe there's guys you may find who are not the starters, or maybe not in the long term plan somewhere else, and give them a shot. So I think right now it's all about like you said, O'Connell, Minshew, and prayer, and then we'll go from there.
O'Connell, Minshew, and prayer. Oh Lord, the season hasn't even started yet. We're going to
No,
prayer.
I've been very positive.
Prayer.
No, I'm saying it doesn't matter who plays quarterback. The defense is that good, running game's that good, and Ted could play quarterback for all we care. It wouldn't matter. So it's all good.
I mean, when they beat the Chiefs in that second
Yeah.
game, how many passes did O'Connell throw? Like 3 passes the whole game?
He was terrible. So there you go.
Yeah, that's the recipe. That's the recipe for 9-8.
Quarterbacks don't matter.
Yep.
That's the team the team motto. Put that on the banner.
Yeah. But I mean, on the hopeful side, maybe O'Connell gets better and maybe he progresses and becomes an average quarterback. We'll see.
Sure. All right.
Sure.
Yeah. Let's go. We'll see this Saturday when they play the Vikings at 1 p.m. Pacific time.
First step is avenging the shutout against the Vikings in this preseason game.
Wow.
So we will talk to you guys after the game. And thanks for joining us. And this is a little bit of a long one, but I think that was a great interview with Eric. And we will see you guys next time.
All right, y'all. Peace.
All right. Hasta la vista.